Hello, my name is Jordan. I'm a second-year law student, and today my talk is on monogamy. Is it really one-size-fits-all? But first of all, I'm going to ask you some questions. Well, actually, I'm going to make you some offers. First offer, a flight. Free flight, first class, private plane, free food, free drinks. You get waited on hands and feet by service to anywhere you want in the world. Now, who would like this? Hands up. Yeah, good offer, pretty much all of you. Same offer again, but there's a 1 in 3 chance that the plane doesn't have a phalange and that it crashes into the ocean, killing you and everyone else on board. 1 in 3 chance. Who still wants this flight? Yeah, none of you. Oh, a few daredevils, okay. Offer number 2, a meal, okay? Some food, a dish, anything that you want. It's, carved by angels. It's orgasmic. It's the best thing that anyone's ever tasted in all of existence, okay? Whatever you want. Who wants this meal? Yeah? Yeah, pretty much all good. Everyone likes food, it. Same offer again, but there's a 1 in 3 chance that it gives you the worst deli belly known to man, and you're on the toilet for a month, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Who still wants this 1 in 3 chance? Maybe, okay. One more. So who here, at some point in the future, with someone that they love very much, would like to get married? Okay, yeah, most of you. Same question again, but you've got a 1 in 3 chance of it ending in divorce. Okay, still the same amount of people. That's interesting, because your odds are actually a lot worse than that. According to the Office for National Statistics, in the UK there's 42% of marriages, that's nearly half of all marriages, end in divorce, 34% before the 20th anniversary. And a big cause of the breakup of marriages and relationships in general is infidelity, cheating on one another. I'm sure most of you have also been affected by this, either yourself personally or other people have been affected by this in your lifetime. So obviously there are many reasons as to why people break up. This is one of the biggest. So I'm asking is there a reason for this? Is there a significant factor as to why, so many sexual and romantic relationships break up in such a way? So monogamy is a form of relationship in which an individual has only one partner during his or her lifetime, or at any one time. So here's what I'm going to argue. Okay, what if it's monogamy which is causing the problem, or more specifically, what if it's the sexual and romantic exclusivity clause that you're not allowed to be sexually or romantically involved with anyone else other than your partner? Now, for me, all of you a bit uncomfortable and shuffling your seats and tuck your teeth, let me just say that I'm not saying that monogamy is bad. I'm not saying that at all, because I know that it works. We've all seen it work, and for some people it's great and fantastic and it works for them, which is brilliant. What I'm saying is that monogamy is not a one-size-fits-all for human relationships. It's not even a one-size-fits-most. And that as a species, we're a lot more naturally promiscuous than we'd like to admit. So, when telling people about this talk, I normally get some questions, didn't we evolve to be monogamous though? Haven't humans always been monogamous, for thousands of years? Isn't it the best way to have a relationship today? All really good questions. So let's start with the first one. Didn't we evolve to be monogamous? Now, in the scientific community, there's no clear consensus. They're not sure how it came about, they're not sure when it came about. Recently you have one study which is released that says monogamy developed as a way to reduce infanticide in primates, where they kill other males' babies. And then at the same time, you have another study released which says, no, it's not to do with infanticide, it's to do with a mating strategy due to intolerant females. But what is clear is that it's not clear. As one of the authors from the latter study noted, Tim Cutton-Brook, it is debatable whether humans should be classified as monogamous because all of the African apes are polygamous and group living. It is likely that the common ancestor of hominids was also polygamous. Oh, and a bit of jargon, just to clear things up, because these words are going to pop up a lot. Polygamy is the practice or custom of having more than one partner at the same time. Polygamy is one man, many wives. Polyandry is one wife, many husbands. Last one's not very common. So, about this common early ancestor. When looking at monogamy in the animal kingdom, only about 3 to 5% of the 5,000 known species of mammals form lifelong monogamous bonds, so not many at all. As previously stated, most of the African apes are polygamous, especially our close ancestors, chimps and bonobos. We're actually more closely related to chimps and bonobos than the African elephant is to the Indian elephant. So, from an evolutionary sexuality point of view, if you want to figure out how we developed sexually, from an evolutionary point of view, it's a good place to start with our close common ancestors. Okay, first we have a question. Hands up, who here has ever heard anyone having sex? It could be anyone, friends, strangers, flatmates, or God forbid family, but yeah? So most of you have heard people having sex. Okay, hands up again if you heard the female more than the male. Most of you. Okay, hands up if you heard the male more than the female. Okay, some, but not many, some noisy males out there. But what these observations tell us is that when humans have sex, they make noise, and it tends to be the female that makes the most noise. And this is no surprise, because this is called female copulatory vocalization. And it's not a trait unique to humans, we also share it with our common ancestors, bonobos and chimps. So if you see here, bonobos and chimps, by the notes above their heads, we also have female copulatory vocalization. Now, you may be wondering, what is the point of this trait? Well, in promiscuous primates, such as the bonobo and the chimp, it serves as a way to attract many males to mate at one time, so it increases the odds of pregnancy, it reduces stress, social cohesion, as there's confusion over who your child is, then there's less infanticide among the males, so it has its benefits. Now, the average human has sex 1,000 times per birth. Now, that number, 1,000 times per birth, seems high to some of you. I assure you, to others in the room, it's actually quite low. but anyway, 1,000 times per birth. We share this ratio with bonobos and chimps, but not with gorillas, orangutans, gibbons, or most other primates and mammals who only have sex about a dozen times per birth. What else do we have? We have the chests and bum protrusions seen in humans, bonobos, and chimps. Why is this? Well, as Charles Darwin said, no case interested and perplexed me so much as the brightly coloured hinder ends and adjoining parts of certain monkeys. Obviously he didn't see the similarities between monkeys and his own species at the time, but, it really, really perplexed him because he's thinking, if all these primates are supposed to be doing is forming their pair bonds, then what's the point of these sexual swellings, which serves to only attract lots of mates at one time? They're supposed to be forming one pair bond with one mate, especially in the supposedly monogamous human ancestors. So it was really confusing to him. He didn't realise that chimps and bonobos mate 1 to 4 times per hour, up to a dozen males per day. Other things like chimps during their menstrual cycle, they're available for sex. Female chimps are available for sex 40% of the time. In bonobos, female bonobos are available for sex 90% of their menstrual cycle. And human beings are one of the most rarest animals on the planet where they are available, female human beings, available for sex throughout their menstrual cycle. One more factoid for you, and guys, you're going to like this. Humans have the thickest, largest penis of any primate on the planet. So, if you needed an ego boost today, there you go. Now, I'm not saying that, sexually we're on a par with primates, because obviously we're not, despite what you might see at Rubik's on a Friday night. No, I'm not saying that, because what all this evidence leads to suggest is that anatomically modern humans who have been around for 200,000 years were a lot more naturally promiscuous than we care to admit. So the next question is, haven't humans been monogamous for thousands of years? Not quite. Not that simple. So for most of our 200,000 years, anatomically modern humans, we roamed around in groups of about 50 to 150 as hunter-gatherers. We moved around, we lived off the land, with the seasons, and they are characterized hunter-gatherers, wherever they're found around the world, by what anthropologists call theist egalitarianism. This is basically where they had to share everything, they shared absolutely everything, and not just, they shared everything, but it was mandatory and part of the group, food, clothing, shelter, items, resources, everything was shared because, it was just the best way to mitigate risk in a foraging context, for the group survival, it was the best way the group survived. In addition to what we know about our naturally promiscuous tendencies, you might think, Okay, so mandatory sharing. Did this mandatory sharing extend to sexual and romantic relationships? Yes, it did. So you have many tribes and cultures around the world where these behaviors are displayed, such as hunter-gatherers in Africa, as the Hazda tribe, where throughout their lifetime they'll have multiple partners. You have hunter-gatherer tribes in South America, in the Amazon, where women will report having 2 to 3 husbands per child. And all those husbands believe that they contributed to the creation of the fetus, and so they share the paternal responsibilities. And this is what anthropologists call partal paternity. You also have other cultures around the world which aren't hunter-gatherers, but a bit more modern, such as the Musoro people in China, still living today, and they're quite an interesting bunch. Every single man and every single woman is completely sexually autonomous. There is no shame in their community associated with sex. Women, if they want, they can have sex with 1,000 different guys if they want, and it's not a problem. There's no shame, there's no gossip, there's no judgment. It's not a big deal. And if she falls pregnant, the child will be cared for by her brothers, her sisters, parents, family, the community as a whole. Let me just clarify that. I'm saying that ancestors were promiscuous. I'm not saying that, they just had sex with everyone like some massive orgy, big free-for-all, any stranger that came along they had sex with. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that they didn't form pair bonds, and I'm not saying that they didn't love each other. I'm just saying that they weren't sexually and romantically exclusive. So, what changed? How do we go from being polyamorous, fierce, egalitarian hunter-gatherers to where we are today? Well, the Neolithic Revolution, or the agricultural revolution, around 10,000 years ago, so only about 5% of our time as modern distinct species. Now, with the agricultural revolution came a massive shift. Humans used to roam around, the groups live off the land, moving about throughout the seasons, and now we're standing in one place. We're staying in one place to farm our crops and to tend our land. And this brought many changes. A massive paradigm shift. It introduced concepts such as ownership and property, which didn't exist beforehand. Before everything was shared, nothing was owned, and now a man believed that the fruits of his labor were his own. The land that he tended was his own, and then of course this led to armies and conflict over land and resources. The irony is that perceived new abundance of food actually led to the illusion of scarcity, the same delusion of scarcity which modern economics is arguing still based on. So with this new competition of scarce resources, competition of scarce resources, people became malnourished, they had a smaller variety of foodstuffs, diseases broke out because they're staying in one place, communities were broken apart, and all these new pressures and stresses led to the more physically dominant male becoming dominant and the female becoming submissive, whereas before, male and female were on an equal pegging in terms of power structure. If anything, the female was regarded highly in hierarchical structures. And so, with the woman, with the female gender becoming more submissive, it led to her becoming treated almost akin to like food or land or any other resources, traded, coveted, protected, guarded like any other resource. With these changes, you see tribes going from worshipping the goddess, the mother, the giver of life, to the male god, angry, vengeful, bringing judgment down on anyone who doesn't obey his commands. And with all these changes, male dominance, female subservience, we saw a shift to polygamy, one man, many wives. And we see this astutely in biblical times, in Abrahamic texts, where it's written about a lot, and they have lots of rules and regulations to do's and to do nots as to how to do polygamy. In Genesis and Deuteronomy 7:17, the king must not take many wives themselves. And in Deuteronomy 21, this one's amazing. So, a man must pass his inheritance to his firstborn son, even if he hates the wife of his firstborn son, even if he hates the mother and he prefers some other wife. No, he must go to his firstborn son. Even if his first wife, they have some argument, she thinks that the dress has been black and he thinks it's white and gold. It doesn't matter. It's got to go to the firstborn son. So it's no surprise that they mentioned inheritance. Inheritance became quite a big deal, because inheritance actually was a big factor leading to the growth of and spread of monogamy in the world. So you have now new ruling classes, new elites, in a world of accumulation of wealth and resources and competition for power and land. You have these very rich people with a lot of power and land, and they want to be able to pass it on. And before, they had to try and figure out how to divide up their possessions, and their lands between all their wives and all their sons. But monogamy is quite a good new invention because it's simplified. Instead of all these wives and children, they only had one official wife, one official bloodline to pass down the titles and land and inheritances. So it's no surprise that it caught on very quickly between the ruling classes of kingdoms and empires, and it spread very quickly throughout the world. One such empire is the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was actually a big propagator of monogamy. So as well as the wealthy classes enjoying it, the new emergent middle class actually were pushing for it as well. Supposedly they were annoyed at the wealthiest classes cherry-picking the best wives for themselves, and they wanted some good suitors, so they pushed for it to be made into law, and eventually it was also adopted into Catholic texts, with church fathers seemingly doing away with the polygamy of the Old Testament because it was God's commandment for spreading the population around the earth, and now that was not such a big deal, so they just did away with it. And despite this, it was still met with much opposition and resistance among the largely polygamous and polygamous African tribes, Middle Eastern tribes, European tribes. Even in the UK, before the Roman invasion, polygamy was the relationship order of the day, and it still was for a long time after the Roman invasion. But 2,000 years later, eventually it became entrenched in the culture of the UK, and we are where we are today. So, isn't it the best way to have a relationship? And how does it affect us today, monogamous relationships and the exclusivity clause? Unfortunately, quite a lot. Let's start big. Let's start with the family unit as a whole, right? So in the past, the family unit was quite big. You had lots of fathers, lots of mothers, aunties, uncles, grandparents, sons, daughters, whatever. It was pretty big. And then eventually over time, the family unit was whittled down slowly to the nuclear family we have today of generally one husband, one wife, just two and their kids. Now, of course, from an economic standpoint, this might be really good. You can make a lot of money from that. If you split up families into nuclear families, you can sell, 5 different plots of land, 5 different houses, 5 different cookers and modes of transport than you were if you had just all those 5 nuclear families sharing one plot of land and one house and one cooker and one mode of transport. So from a business standpoint, it made a lot of money. For humans, it wasn't very good. But how else did it affect as well? Well, before they had multiple fathers and multiple mothers, and this was great because raising children is a very taxing thing, and they could share the responsibility of raising a child, and the child had the added benefit of multiple parental figures. Compare that to now with the nuclear family, and the burden and responsibility of raising a child just rests on 2 people. And back in the day, if a child's parent died, if a mother-father died, it was bad, yeah, sure, but they had other mothers to love them and console them. They had other fathers to look after them and help raise them and bring them up. Compare that to nowadays. If, mum or dad dies, the pressure that has on the surviving spouse, who now has to take care of the kids on their own, bills, they have to pay for the mortgage on their own, entire responsibility of being a parent on their own. Imagine the impact on the child losing their only mum or their only dad, and no one else there to fill their cap and help look after them. What about separation? Back in the day, separation was quite a natural, normal thing. They knew that humans change over time. As we get older, personalities change, and once before we might have connected quite well, and now we don't. That we're attracted to novelty and new experiences and new connections, and so separation, wasn't such a big deal. Look at separation today. It's this massive, all-encompassing experience, lots of drama, chaos, heartbreak. Both parties are affected. It can split friendship groups. And it does take a psychologist to tell the impact it has on children of divorced parents, the emotional trauma, the developmental issues, especially on younger children. Leaving aside families and children just for 1 second, let's talk about how it affects just our relationships in general, non-marriage relationships, any kind of relationship. The whole monogamous relationship, exclusivity clause, it's endemic. It is in the very fabric of our society, of our culture. You go into a shop, right? You buy a magazine, like a little girl's Disney Princess magazine, and you open it up. And you've got stories full of the princesses obsessing over finding their Prince Charming. You know, I must find my prince, my one true love, this magical unicorn of a human being which is going to tick every single box and will do for the 40 or so years of my life. And this continues from, you know, teen magazines to Heat magazine, TV, films, soap opera, rom-coms, literature. It's everywhere. A whole culture obsessed with finding the one, and then we're almost surprised at the cacophony of drama that unfolds when we fail to. So, I mean, you know, just look at other things like EastEnders or Hollyoaks or Made in Chelsea, you know, week in, week out. Episodes revolve and feed on the drama of someone cheating on someone new and, you know, someone splitting up and who's Spencer slept with today. And, you know, makes for good television, but in the TV show it doesn't look like they're having the best time. How many times in your life have you, again, personally or know someone else, been affected by someone cheating or being unfaithful? Now, being a law student, I can't help but now think of things in terms of contracts and, you know, terms and conditions and so on and so forth. But what is monogamous relationships if not a contract? And what is exclusivity if not a term of that contract? You know, exclusivity goes against our very nature as humans. You know, it's like playing a game of football, but it's against the rule for the ball to touch any part of your body other than your foot. So when you're playing, inevitably the ball will come flying on and hit in your head or your arm or your chest, and the other team's going to cry, foul, foul, you broke the rules, you broke the rules. And yeah, they did break the rule, but was the rule really that helpful or realistic in the first place? You know, analogies aside, what am I suggesting here as a potential solution to this? Polyamory. Polyamory is the practice of engaging in multiple sexual and or romantic relationships with the consent of all people involved. Now, okay, let's apply this to a scenario. So polyamorous people, you know, they'll be able to have more than one boyfriend or girlfriend at the same time, and they'll be able to have sex with other people, and it's not a big deal. So let's apply this to a scenario, okay? You have scenario A, a monogamous couple, and scenario B, a polyamorous couple. Scenario A. Morning, how's it going, darling? You're right. Where were you last night? I was out drinking with my mates, you know that. Yeah, but where did you stay? I stayed at Bill's house. No, you didn't. No, yes I did. No, you didn't. You're lying, because I've got a Snapchat of you sleeping house on Slag's house. Who is he? What's her name? Look, well, how did you get that? Because she sent it to Bill, who sent it to Caitlin, who sent it to Mary, who then sent it to me. Don't you think that I wouldn't find out? How could you do this to me? Do you not love me? Well, no, of course I still love you. Look, it didn't mean anything, okay? It was the heat of the moment. I wasn't thinking, you know, I still love you. How can you still love me if you did this to me? You know, you've seen this before? Scenario B, polyamorous couple. Morning, darling, how's it going? You alright? I'm good, how you doing? How's your night out? Drink a lot? Yeah, I got pretty smashed, yeah. Oh, you. Did you stay at my Bill's house? No, I didn't actually. Oh, yeah. Where'd you stay then? At some girl's house. Oh, was it? Oh, yeah. So, go on, tell me about it. Tell us the details, share the gossip. No, I'm not talking about this one. Oh, what? Come on, why not? Because it was really weird. She made me put on a Donald Trump mask and she was making fucking noises and no, I really don't want to talk about it. Do you want me to like go upstairs and get a Donald Trump mask and we can get down if you like that? Now, no, we're not doing that. Definitely not. You're a mug. Yeah, I know. I love you. I love you too. What is the difference between those two scenarios? In the first scenario, the couple's relationship hinges on the assumption of exclusivity. You know, and when that is broken, it's seen as a betrayal, a breach of trust that arouses feelings of confusion and jealousy. In the other scenario, you don't have that, because their love and intimacy is not conditional on exclusivity. Exclusivity, of course, is just a hangover from when humans were treated like property. You know, your spouse was akin to your own property, and if someone else was interfering sexually or romantically with that person, it's like they were interfering with your property. Now, you may ask, okay, fine, but how can someone love more than two people at the same time? How can you be romantically involved with more than one person at the same time? How can you have more than one boyfriend or girlfriend, you know? And I say, you already know how to. You do it every single day. You will have friends, right? I assume. You all have good friends even, maybe best friends, and you probably have more than one good friend or best friend at any one time. You know, I can be friends with Omar and Natalie, and my friendship with Omar doesn't detract from my friendship with Natalie. You know, I can spend an entire afternoon having a deep, meaningful conversation with Omar, and that conversation doesn't detract or make worth any less a deep, meaningful conversation I had with Natalie a few afternoons before. So a polyamorous person would argue, so why does this not apply to sexual and romantic relationships as well? I mean, you have many friends which serve many different purposes. You have a friend which, you know, you'll go shopping with. You have a friend which you'll play video games with, a friend that you do sports with, a friend that you talk politics with, because it's unlikely you're going to find one person which shares every single interest that you do and every single hobby. So why do we expect the same thing from relationships? Why do we expect, you know, to find one relationship which caters to every single need and every single interest? Why not have multiple relationships which account for the different sides of you, the different aspects of you, different interests, and otherwise? So, and look, polyamory isn't just one big commitmentless sexual orgy free-for-all. You know, polyamorous people, they still love each other. They still, you know, form bonds of trust. They still commit to each other. They still form pair bonds. You know, they just come up with their own terms of contract, one which is tailor-fit to them. You know, and there are many variations on this. For example, you might have one couple, you know, like an open relationship, where they don't really romantically involve with other people, but they still allow themselves to be sexually involved with other people. Or you might have another relationship where, you know, they're allowed to be sexually and romantically involved with other people, but, you know, one of the couples might have a couple of boyfriends and girlfriends, and the other one is just fine with just the one romantic relationship, because that's all they want. You know, they tailor it to individuals because we're all pretty unique. What we found out is that sexuality, especially over the years, especially recently, is a lot more complicated than we thought. You know, sexual orientation, you can go from extremely heterosexual on one end to extremely homosexual on the other, or you'll probably like fall somewhere in between. You know, it could be anything from heteroflexible, bisexual, pansexual, asexual, whatever. It's a whole spectrum. And this is not just with your sexual preference, but, you know, your gender identity and all sorts. We're finding out that sexuality is very much a spectrum. And so why do we not treat sexual and romantic relationships in the same way? You know, because I'm really not saying that monogamy is bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that sexual and romantic relationships, there's a whole spectrum of different types, and monogamy is just one of them. So, you know, I really think it's well past time that we all cut ourselves some slack. Seriously, it's about time that we stopped making ourselves feel so shameful, so guilty about our most basic and natural human desires and instincts. Because let's be honest, at the end of the day, you know, we're only human.